Hello everybody, CabooseDOTexe here, and it's finally time to make some Doom Eternal videos before the game actually releases. Originally, I had a lot of theories, but those videos kept getting pushed back due to scheduling issues, along with a lot of missing information, a lot of confusion. However, the Codex made its way online when all that footage from the press event back in January came out. So now, I'll be explaining everything we have learned and know leading up to the release of Doom Eternal. This way we'll know what's going on to some degree to help us on our way, since Doom hasn't really had a story until now. And let me tell you, the lore in Doom is pretty complicated. I mean, I spent about a week and a half just trying to figure out exactly who the Slayer is, and I finally have something on that, so please subscribe if you want to see that video when it comes out. But today, I figured we should start as close to the beginning as possible. The beginning of the Doom timeline, or story. And that means we're going to be talking about the history of Argent D'Nur. At least as much as we can from start to finish. I'll be giving some of my theories and predictions on the way and at the end. I'll be doing more of these videos as there are several other things to talk about, and I would love to dive into the entire lore of the game when it finally releases. So subscribe to see more Doom Eternal videos as well as other Doom related things, such as the movies, which I will be doing a deep dive into. So, in the beginning, there was nothing on the planet of Argent D'Nur until a spire of rock and metal pierced the planet from pole to pole. From the core, or womb as it is described, the elemental wraiths emerged and showered the land with their wraith call. Basically, their house got destroyed by an asteroid, they got mad, started yelling and casting magic all over the place. The first to receive power from the wraiths were the Ancestrals, who were feral and grew to massive, towering heights. After being empowered by the wraiths, they proceeded to just fight each other. Talk about waking up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they picked up a berserker pack and just went insane. As the wraith calls continued to spread across the land, the Argenta emerged and were almost entirely wiped out by the Ancestrals. When they were driven to near extinction, they discovered their true power brought about by their rage, and this allowed them to bring the Ancestrals to their knees. A sort of David and Goliath situation. And after their victory over the Ancestrals and casting them out, the Argenta crowned a king, Omero, which is actually an anagram for Romero, as in John Romero, one of the original developers of Doom, at id Software. They then started creating civilizations and built the Cathedral of Reflection to worship the wraiths, thus leading them to form the Order of the Deag, whose job it was to pay tribute to these wraiths and appease their hunger. Before we continue, I just have a quick thought. Do these big, huge beasts that were cast out of the planet sound kind of familiar to anyone else? Because my first thought are these titans that carry around the hell fortresses of the hell priests. Just some food for thought, you know what I mean? What do you guys think of that kind of connection? Moving on, after the Order of the Deag was formed, at this point men and women would try to take the full force of the Wraith Call. This would make them either incredibly powerful or shatter their minds and warp their bodies and make them just drive them to madness. Those that survived would be strengthened by the Wraith Calls and would fight back those who fell to it. And once they emerged from battle, they would create the Order of the Night Sentinels. My guess is that those who fell would become some of the demons that we know in the Doom universe. Now, the next major event is when the Makers showed up during the Age of Grief when King Etrix took the throne. We don't know much about it currently as we only have part of the Codex entry. However, what we do know is that these beings were described as white porcelain, kind of like a toilet. And these angelic beings who have been observing the Argenta and what they have accomplished and wanted to bring them great prosperity. They came with gifts like tools and weapons and kind of helped run their society. Gave them ideas, stuff like that. Lastly, in the third part of the Codex, we have only one paragraph, but it is a big one. With all the knowledge the Argenta had gained from the Makers, they spread their knowledge across the land. The way it's described is that these trips might be similar to mission trips. To accomplish this, they took flight with the support of the Khan Maker. And in this image, you can see them leaving the planet in what look like to be fortresses of Doom, or Doom fortresses. So basically, they're traveling space in a building. How awesome is that? As for where they're traveling to, they mention it as the Empyrean Void, which Empyrean in biblical terms means the highest point in heaven. So we know that the Argenta travel to other worlds, and my guess is this is where one of these other worlds would become known as Sentinel Prime. If you have any knowledge on Sentinel Prime's origins, please let me know in the comments. It's still a little confusing to figure that one out. This is when King Navik would come into power. King Navik is the one we see the Doomslayer bow to in the footage we have seen online countless times, especially in the trailer. And I don't know about you, but I watched that trailer so many times. I love it. It is one of my favorite trailers I've ever seen for any video game. Oh my god, it is amazing. Before we move on, there's an important note here, kind of a turning point that needs to be mentioned, but the problem is it's a little muddy. And I would like your help here, as I'm still not certain what exactly happens to cause a shift in alliance. Up until this point, the Argenta worship the Wraiths, but then the Makers show up and suddenly they seem to be the new hotness. But next thing we know, they're not so good after all. My guess is that something happened, and it was revealed to the Argenta that the Makers don't seem to have the best intentions. And this might be due to what comes next, which we know from the previous game and these Codex entries. Whatever it seemed to be, it was deemed unfair or unscrupulous by the Night Sentinels, and thus they renounced their belief in the Makers. We actually do have kind of an idea as to what it could be in Doom Eternal, as one of the Codex entries does reveal something. However, I'm not sure if this act is what reveals to the Argenta that the Makers aren't as great and angelic as they seem to be. It could potentially be something else. What I'm going to reveal to you is something that is actually terrible, but it may not be what causes this change in alliance. So at this point, we're mostly caught up to Doom 2016, and we're just going to go and fill in some of those blanks with what we know from Doom Eternal's Codex. Keep in mind, there's going to be more that's revealed. This isn't the entire Codex. This is just the part that we have online from someone who played the game's first 3 hours. Even then, I'm sure what we have seen is definitely not in the first 3 hours. I'm fairly certain there's a lot more from those first 3 hours. So let's fill in those blanks. The main thing we learned from Doom 2016 is the betrayal and eventual downfall of Argent D'Nur. In Doom 2016, we know that the downfall of Argent D'Nur was primarily caused by one man known as the Betrayer. We know that his betrayal is what causes the Wraiths to be captured and turned into the Well, which is where the Argent energy comes from that Samuel Hayden is siphoning in order to get power to Earth. But there is more to it. See, the Order of the Deag would eventually be corrupted by Hell's influence and the taste of Argent energy, and now the Deag follow the orders of the Khan Maker, unbeknownst to the Argenta. Only after years of war with the demonic threat invading their world, Argent D'Nur launches an attack into Hell. This attack was meant to be on the Foundry, where the souls of the innocent are turned into essence to give to the Makers. The Deag recommended sending the Doomslayer along with the army of Night Sentinels. This was basically their idea. However, once they entered, the Deag, who are now basically Hell priests, cut off the Night Sentinels and the Doomslayer from the rest of Argent D'Nur, and they caused them to scatter. They panicked. In the end, one of these Night Sentinels remained in Hell by choice, Commander Valen, or Valen. I'm going to say Valen. We're going to say Valen for now. They were the one who would go on to betray his people, but not entirely by choice. Some of it is redacted, but I believe it's most likely that the hellish forces were causing visions and warping his mind, allowing him to more easily succumb to betrayal. Think about it. He was a commander, and like others of his kind, he was fierce and honor-bound. But a tragic loss of his son in battles with Hell made him weak and exposed to vulnerability. The Hell priests, themselves Deags, who previously worshipped the Wraiths, offered him the return of his son in exchange for means to capture the elemental Wraiths. Commander Valen then gave up the keys to the elemental sepulchre, which is most likely where the elemental Wraiths slept, and his son was then resurrected as the icon of sin itself. Now with a reduced army, weakened by the loss of the elemental Wraiths, that gave them power. The Night Sentinels could only flee. They had to leave their home planet. And to add insult to injury, some of the Sentinels were also corrupted. The Sentinels of the Deag Order serve under the Khan Maker. These are most likely the ones we see in the trailer with the red spheres, and most likely one of them is the Marauder, the one who's constantly chasing after the Doomslayer throughout the entirety of Doom Eternal, the one with that amazing looking battle axe, calling him a usurper. And, well, there you have it. I have more of these to talk about, so please subscribe to see those videos when they come out. I'm gonna try to get at least one Doom-related video out each week leading up to Doom Eternal. However, I will have a few of the misses here and there, or I'll maybe double up one week. I will be going to PAX East, so there may be one that week or maybe not, I'm not sure. If you're going to PAX East, I'd love to see you there. If I miss something, it'll most likely come in a later video, or please go ahead and tell me in the comments. There was a lot to unravel here for this video, and I ended up discovering a few things on the way. In fact, this video was originally going to be about the Doomslayer themselves, but I really couldn't get everything together. There was just so much I had to unpack. And I figured, since I had to unpack it that way, it might be easy to consume and digest if I did that to you guys as well. Just kind of tell you everything I learned along the way. I figured the history of the Night Sentinels and Argent D'Nur was kind of the big one that we needed to cover, because that is something that's huge and we're going to expand on in Doom Eternal. The other ones will be more or less diving deep into specific lore. For instance, who are some of the major Deags, some of the things about the Doomslayer, some things about the King, some of the other things that are in the Doom Fortress or the Fortress of Doom that floats above Earth, you know, that kind of stuff. But anyway, I've been CabooseDOTexe, and remember, I love you. Bye-bye. Whoa.